Former Telltale CEO talks about fostering a culture that made it difficult for devs to walk away from the content and just say, "I am going home." Game Informer has published its in-depth story on Telltale Games, speaking to a number of developers, both aimed and anonymous, to track the studio's practices, triumphs, and unfortunate decline. The full story published on Game Informer is an important read, and one that charts the life and eventual missteps of the prolific studio through the voices of the developers that created its games. Early on in the story, Kevin Bruner, co-founder and former CEO of Telltale, says that the early success of The Walking Dead set a high bar for the company's future work. "We wanted bigger and more interesting licenses, so we had bigger and more interesting market opportunities," Bruner tells Game Informer, "and we wanted to make sure that we did not go backward. We did not want The Walking Dead to be a fluke, or to be a one-hit wonder." That led to a mix of issues, namely in that Telltale leadership wanted to recreate the success of The Walking Dead in every game the studio produced, but were reluctant to deviate from the formula and take the risks that would get those results. Former Telltale narrative designer Emily Grace Buck explains that misunderstandings and miscommunication between the executive and developer levels hindered the process as well. She tells Game Informer of a fundamental misunderstanding of Telltale's audience that led leadership to, for instance, push for dark themes over comedy in Guardians of the Galaxy, and during some parts of the development of Minecraft Story Mode. Some of that came from publishing, says Buck. It seems like some of that came from the board's requests as well. There were misunderstandings and misinformation at multiple levels that caused things to go that direction. She notes that there were specific moments of creative conflict with Bruner during his time at the studio, as well, where he would ask for extremely large changes very close to a ship date that would mandate crunch for a huge percentage of the studio. Many Telltale developers, both in Game Informer story and publicly following last year's layoffs, recall a toxic company culture and unrelenting pressure to crunch. Speaking to Game Informer, Bruner says that at an executive level, there was a push for that fast-paced culture, seemingly despite the human costs. "For me, at an executive level, all the way down to the animator, if you see an opportunity to make the game better, and you know it's going to ship in a week, and you care about the content, it's really hard to walk away from the content and just say, you know what, this is as good as it's going to get. I am going home." Bruner tells Game Informer, "We tried to create an environment where you really had to do that to survive at Telltale, because we did not have these 3-year-long production cycles." The full story on Game Informer is a lengthy read, but one that explores crunch, rapid scaling, and other factors necessary to understand what led to Telltale's sudden, near closure at the end of last year. Use of monetization mechanics in Apex Legends. Only Apex from now on. More specifically, its work with customization and desire creation was the design that recently caught my attention. Apex is free to play, therefore it heavily depends on its ability to acquire players, to keep them and in the final stage to monetize them. This fact convinced me that there must have been a substantial portion of design work invested to monetization aspects. My aim in this analysis is to look deeper into what Apex design solutions offer, how we can look at it from the perspective of desire creation fulfillment, and what we can learn from it. First, I will provide the basic information about the game, including the game flow and then I will present the desired framework and show how the creators handled it. In the end, I will suggest some ideas and comparisons. One quick note before we start: the opinions in this analysis are mine, and may not reflect the opinions of my current employer. Apex is a team-based battle royale F2P title developed by Respawn Entertainment and released in February 2019. Battle Royale is a competitive last-man standing mode with zero start and death zone. For a base analysis, I will use the framework proposed by Nicholas, level dividing the game into a base layer, retention layer and monetization layer. I will use it to provide you with all the necessary knowledge in order to acknowledge the interconnectedness and complexity of monetization in the whole game. Description of the base and the retention layer is not detailed, but adequate for understanding their connections to monetization. The game's base layer is based on episodic matches, which take up to 30 minutes. A player can choose from several characters: Mirage, Lifeline, Gibraltar. For each match, each character has specific abilities, one passive, one active and one ultimate. No team can have more than one character in the game. A player starts matchmaking, with or without friends in the lobby. If there are missing players in the group, they are supplied, so they form a team of 3 players. The bold part is described by the picture below. Looking at the map and the player can see miniature icons with the name tag on the picture of player's previous character. A message waiting for the other players is displayed. Players are taken to character selection, where each player picks a character for the match. Players called Overview, Champions called Overview. 0 start players are on a flying vehicle, which continue on a straight line across the playing area. The player can then choose when they jump and where to drop from there. Therefore, they can radically influence their starting location, and they can also take into account the starting location of other players. Players start each match with an empty inventory and have to collect loot, weapons, armor, weapon attachments, consumables. During the match, 0 start is the only point in combat when a player uses third-person camera and is able to see his teammates' skins, as well as his own. Combat phase. Death zone. During the match, there are specific circle areas. Anyone beyond the limits of this circle is damaged. This area is shrinking down in phases, and therefore it drives all the players closer together. Death screen. If the player dies, the spectator mode possible. Victory screen. If the player's squad is the last one in the game. Match summary and then back to lobby. Apex is using players' account progression as a counter for their retention. Each player's account has a level indicator which increases with each match, similar to G. Overwatch. Players get XP for participating in a base layer. The player is rewarded by soft currency, legend tokens, and with occasional loot box, Apex packs. The player's account also unlocks characters and further customizations for the characters at certain levels. In addition, Battle Pass was implemented recently. This is yet another form of retention mechanic, as it allows the player to obtain the Battle Pass with additional rewards. It has 2 tiers: Premium, which has to be purchased with Apex coins, and Free, which is automatic for all players. Battle Pass is seasonal. It is active only for a limited time, and once it is over, the next season with the new progression and rewards is implemented. Progression is not carried over to the next Battle Pass. This is my assumption, based on industry standard approach to season passes. At the time of writing this article, only the first season is active. Crafting materials, CM, Crafting material are received from Apex. Packs are used to craft customizations. Price points 1,200.
400、60、30。
Players can receive up to 60 from one Apex pack. Legend tokens. Legend tokens are received for leveling up and are used for unlocking characters and in other cases customizations in shop. Price points 10,500 and 12,000.